gear in terms of uniform and stuff. I don't know about the heavy machinery. That's really what the problem is, the heavy machinery they have. And he didn't say anything about recalling them but he's going to limit. Now, what does that mean? You see?
Well, it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, okay. That's the point. The president talks one talk and do a different walk. And
the situation is we have a situation where all of these police departments have benefited tremendously, large and small, from the 1033 program. It goes back slightly before President Obama was in office. However, over the last, since 2006, it was implemented more, but in the last 4 years, it's been upgraded to a point where it's just totally ridiculous now. And police departments, as we witnessed in Ferguson, have heavy armaments just to patrol 20,000 people. They have military equipment, you know, LRADs and MRAPs and night equipment and, you know, and other police departments. I mean, they didn't show the helicopters, but, you know, I mean, all of this high-tech stuff and fatigues and the like, and as Father Lucas pointed out, they're not calling it back. It's just going to be further scrutinized. In other words, somebody will be assigned to request it that knows how to write, knows how to request things. That's all it'll be. It'll be somebody that can talk a little better, can write a little better than your average form that was filled out. The form was just so basic and easy before. You just asked for it and you got it. So President Obama has that ability to say a lot and do very little relative to change.
Yeah, some departments with 24 people have armored vehicles and tanks. What's that all about?
It makes no sense. In the night
and
vision,
drones now too.
Night vision, drones, helicopters, fully automatic weapons for urban warfare in a Lebanon type situation, in a so-called Middle East crisis, and to have those on the urban streets, obviously we'll be the targets, African Americans. So it's a shame that he would entertain that. And his major problem, truth be told, is with the optics. When Ferguson put on the fatigues that one time, it irked the White House to no means, because you saw it looked like soldiers preying on innocent people who were just merely demonstrating, you know, saying things like hands up, don't shoot, I can't breathe, and things like that. And they put on fatigues and actually was in combat, not only in the combat gear, but took combat stances, fully automatic weapons, training them on people who were just saying, don't shoot, you know, hands up, don't shoot. So the optics disturbed the White House because that image went all over the world, and it was truly an embarrassment to those who believe America's a land of justice and fairness. So he had a problem with the optics.
Well, I'm glad you put it that way. Yes, the problem was not what was done, but it was shown all over the world.
Yeah.
That's where the problem comes from.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what about your favorite place to vacation, Waco, Texas? What happened in Waco, Texas, Father Lucas?
Well, there are two motorcycle groups who got into it. And I think as of now, something like 9 or 12 people killed, many injured, and 170 of them have been arrested. But the interesting...
Now, you say they were killed. Was this...
a shootout.
Were they doing ultimate fighting or wrestling or
No, a shootout.
Oh, they use weapons?
Yeah, weapons.
On each other?
On each other. And not surprisingly, they were primarily Caucasians.
Right.
And that's the issue that nobody's talking about. They're armed to the teeth. And they're telling folks in the black community to give up your weapons. What should be happening in the black community, instead of these preachers holding gun buyouts, they should be initiating gun clubs, teaching these fools what a gun is all about, when to use it, to self-defense, and so forth and so on.
No, wait. Are you trying to infer on television in front of a live audience that white preachers don't tell white people to give up their guns?
Hell no.
You're saying that's something that just black preachers do?
Yes.
So you haven't seen any documented cases of white preachers telling white communities to give up their guns?
I haven't seen any, and I haven't had any reported either.
Interesting, interesting. So you think that they would still get a full church and everything if they would preaching that type of doctrine about give up your guns?
I don't know if they got a full church, but yes, they would lose members. You know, it was in the old days. I don't hear it as much now. When they were talking about turn the other cheek.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard a white preacher tell a white congregation to turn the other cheek. And the amazing thing about that was it had nothing to do with what they were saying anywhere. They were preaching to black folks, you know, turn the other cheek. That means when the white man go upside your head, you turn and say, hit me again harder on the other side.
Right.
But that turn the other cheek had nothing to do with that. It had to do with a African gesture of ostracism. And Jesus was telling his apostles, if you're really following what I'm saying, they're going to ostracize you from the synagogues and from their social clubs.
Well,
and when they give you that gesture, turn the other one to let them know, I know I don't belong to you, I belong to Christ.
Well, I've always maintained that so-called Southern hospitality was African humanity, and white folks were amazed watching us share with the little sugar and butter and chicken or whatever we might have had with each other, and they were just amazed seeing that the African humanity we showed one to another, as opposed to them who just take. Anyway, so white folks, they're the ones, I thought it was black folks, but I guess it's white folks that sing them songs about Johnny get your gun and keep the powder dry.
Yeah.
Them kind of songs.
And they would sing that in church, in their white church.
Johnny get your gun, boy. Ain't that something? Well, we've come to a part where this is the day of our shining black prince, El Haj Malik El Shabazz, Omar Wali. So we're going to show you a clip on Malcolm, and then we'll start a discussion on Malcolm, and then after that we'll do the call-ins. But let's watch this clip on Malcolm X to show you just how razor sharp his mind was and what any of you can potentially do if you put your mind to it. The clip should, okay.
To contain it, to stop the trouble. The Freedom Ride, we were asked to stop and cool off. This has been the response of the administration at all times, but now, as there is growing momentum to the revolution, the administration is being pulled along. And I hope they'll be pulled along enough so that they'll take the lead and actually do something constructive.
Well, let me, Malcolm X, if I may, let me pursue this just a moment, Mr. Farmer. When you talk about the administration, when you talk about containment, are you talking about containing the acts of violence or near violence, or are you talking about containing the Negro's effort to secure for himself the equality that is the birthright of all people?
We're talking about containing the militant struggle. Stop what you are doing, and let's go back to the old way of doing it by sitting around the table and parceling out a few minor steps here and there. But this is not enough any longer.
But do you think that this reflects a basic refusal to accept the development of the Negro's position?
Well, I think in part it's a refusal or a failure to recognize the intensity of the demands. Now, I think that recognition is coming. I think that the administration is beginning to recognize it. The speech of the president recently on civil rights indicates that. But this is because the pressure is kept up. And I fear that if the pressure relaxes now, that the tendency of the power structure to move will decline. That's why we intend to keep up the pressure, as I'm sure the other gentlemen here do.
Malcolm X, I think perhaps we ought to turn to Malcolm X, who wanted to comment on that.
Yes, it's white power structure. When you say power structure, I know you mean the white power structure, because that's all we have in America. And the white power structure today is just as much interested in perpetuating slavery as the white power structure was 100 years ago. Only now they use modern methods of doing so. And realizing that the black people in this country are waking up and becoming filled with a desire to be looked upon as men and as human beings, the white power structure to slow down that struggle for freedom and human dignity uses tricks. 100 years ago, they could do it with chains. Today, they use tricks, and one of the tricks that they've invented is this token integration, to get Negro, so-called Negro leaders to accept a few token crumbs of integration that don't solve any problem for the masses of black people in this country whatsoever, but it does make the hand-picked Negroes be satisfied to slow down the cry of the masses. And a good example of that is, as soon as the spirit of rebellion or revolution began to spread among the masses of black people in this country, and they began to take an active part, and they showed that they weren't confined to this nonviolent approach, then the government or the power structure began to sit up and take notice. And now, as you said earlier, the president is talking about new legislation and to put it, take it out of the streets and put it back in the courts. Why, as long as it's in the streets, it's in the hands of the masses of black people who will not compromise or who cannot be bought out. But when you put it back in the courts, then that puts it back into the hands of the hand-picked Negro leaders who will allow the judges and the other persons that are involved in this white power structure to slow them down. It's only a trick. And as long as the masses of black people are involved in the struggle for freedom, not integration, but freedom, respect as human beings, respect as men, and show that they're willing to die to be respected as men, then the power structure sits up and takes notice. But as long as this mass element is led, and when I say led, I use led in quotes, actually contained by Uncle Tom Negro leaders who hold them back, who tell them turn the other cheek, and things like that, then the white power structure isn't worried at all. They're only worried when they know that the masses of black people are ready to explode, and in exploding it will destroy some of the furniture in their house, and then they react accordingly.
Mr. Morris? Well, I believe
You just heard it right there. You just heard Malcolm in June of '63 describe Ferguson. You just heard him describe Baltimore. You just heard him describe New York City. You just heard him describe how, as he called them, Uncle Tom Negro leaders, how they scramble and run and try to contain us whenever we're on the move and we're in the streets and we're really uniting around self-defense. That's when whites come in, and in this particular case, President Obama will come in and try to act as if his Justice Department is going to do something. But here you hear June '63, Malcolm describing something current, something relative and germane to our experience. Father Lucas.
What can I say? It brings back memories many years ago when I first met Malcolm. I was probably in my third year in college, so that would be about '54. Mm-hmm. And, we were on break from the seminary, and I was, it was then called Lenox Avenue, and I had on a black suit, white shirt, and black tie, which was the uniform at that time that we wore before we were ordained. And I'm coming along, and I recognize his face, and he probably got impressed. It looks like I was going to school. So Malcolm stops me and says, "What are you?" I said, "I'm a student." It says, "What are you studying?" Well, you got to remember now, you were talking about 1954. And there were few, if none, black priests, Catholic priests. Mm-hmm. And anytime you would say that, folks would salam and say, "Oh, wow." I said, "I'm studying to be a Catholic priest." Malcolm puts his hand on his hips and said, "You must be out of your goddamn mind." Wow. At first, I didn't know whether I was shocked or what the situation was. But from that point, we began to meet regularly. Malcolm introduced me to books which I couldn't find in our seminary library, in our college library and stuff. And that was the years of the Masur bookstore. where we used to
Yeah.
hold sessions, you know, people
Me
like
shows, yeah.
people like John Henry Clark, Ben Yackman, Elambe
Yeah.
Brath, and it was a real university there.
Mm-hmm.
And Malcolm would always, and then when he was on the street talking, he would always give you a salute.
Now that's interesting. You saying back then in 1954. Okay, that means Malcolm was just out of jail 2 years.
That's right.
But so well studied by then. So we're talking about all the books that he read because he went into jail in 46, came out in 52. So we're talking about 6 years in of study, or maybe, well, he did wait some time in jail. So let's say 5 years of study, because those first few months he was, you know, just out of control.
Yeah.
So once he started on the track to studying, because there was a Malcolm Little and a Detroit Red before there was a Malcolm X.
X.
So, you know, we always need to be reminded of that.
But he reminds me of John Henry Clark. They're both self-educated. Self-educated people.
Now, so that means no university can claim him.
That's right.
Okay, so if Malcolm was self-educated, now we have to remember, and you know, I had a beautiful dialogue when it's Saturday night. Me and Minister Abdul Haq Muhammad, you know, we both were we both stay at the stage at Nicholas Bookstore, 570 Fulton Street in Brooklyn. You need to go by this, black owned and operated. They got books, they got food, they got a whole host of health foods. He was sharing some things about Malcolm in his life, just how intelligent and how well studied it is. That sometimes we forget about the Malcolm Little, or the person, the Malcolm fresh out of the pen. But you know, there was a Detroit Red, and Malcolm. It shows that that genius that Malcolm had to be class president in literally an all-white school. Malcolm was one of the few blacks in an all-white school and was the top scholar in the school. And so that shows you he went from brilliant to some errant ways, obviously, once he hit those streets, and had to come back home into himself.
Well, that shows you the power of change from Detroit Red or Malcolm to Malcolm X. Now, that's a tremendous change.
That's a quantum leap.
It is. And that's one of the things I was very insisted on when I was in the correction department, to use people like Malcolm and so forth and tell these jokers, never mind what you were or your past. Start thinking of who you are now and who you're going to be when you get out of here, because you're not going to spend the rest of your life in these jungles.
Now, what do you think of the Nation of Islam has never gotten its just due for being able to take people who were really parasitical in the black community, people who were on drugs, people who were robbers and pimps and what have you, and they would turn them around. They would be productive people like a Malcolm that would dedicate their life to our people. Do you think there are more young people out here, or people that's suffering from the scourge of drugs right now, that can be another Malcolm?
Of course. Of course. I saw, well, I saw some in jail who, I mean, look at people like Eddie Ellis. There's so many names come to mind. You
Now,
know.
Eddie Ellis reached back. Eddie Ellis went to jail and did time, and he was at Attica. As we know, he came out and developed a program where he did outreach back and reached out to men and women.
Exactly.
He had outreach and was able to help black men that got out of jail, help them with employment, help them with furthering their education.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think of a person like Imam Omar Abdul Jalil, whom you knew. He did, I forgot how many years, for murder rap. He changed his whole life around, and as you know, he retired on a disability from the Department of Correction as he was an assistant commissioner. I was acting after he left, but as assistant commissioner.
Well, Malcolm had literally had a power to change human life, could take people, inspire them, sort of like a Dr. Clark.
Yeah.
Dr. Clark had that capacity to speak and somehow reach a young man and turn him around. I remember Dr. Clark talking about, he was lecturing once with some students, and the students talked about they hated math. They found his history interesting because he knows how to engage you and pull you in. So, but they said they didn't like math and science. And then Dr. Clark went on to start teaching them about Imhotep, the master mathematician, the math scientist, doctor, and started talking to them. Some of them became doctors after Dr. Clark spoke to them. And one was the head of surgery in Harlem Hospital, and a few others went to other places, but they became doctors after talking to Dr. Clark. What's that impact like what a Malcolm or a Dr. Clark can do?
It shows you that with the right people at the right time, you could bring about changes that you never thought was going to happen. And they both, and some others also, did that kind of thing with folks who you know, if you left it to the white power structure, they're gods, you know, they will tell you, well, this person will never change, he or she is gone for good. You know, that's what the death penalty is all about, right?
Well, yeah, well, it's finality too, what they would consider a problem. But I would say that if white people can send a man to the moon and can put satellites out there in space, which is used by people every day, cell phones and television and all these programs, and yet they claim they can't educate our youth. Now, there's an African proverb that says, only a fool allows the enemy to teach his children.
Exactly.
Right now, when you send children to school, you are fully under the impression that white folks' goal is to teach them. Well, the African proverb says otherwise. So if children are not getting it, and a person like Malcolm got so frustrated with the school system that by the time he got to the 8th grade, he dropped out, then is that a part of the plan to make you disinterested with education, or just make you, or by that time, you're so filled with so much self-hate that it's no more, you have no more goals in mind?
Well, white supremacy has never been interested in educating black folks. And that's why the school systems is like what it is. So it's not that they can't, they don't want to. Because educated black folks, the first thing they're going to do is to throw the monkey of white supremacy off their backs.
Now, Malcolm, we saw there Malcolm debating scholars, and Malcolm had a history of debating at Harvard, Yale, Oxford, and all these various places with America's best. You know, the best white scholars one could produce, and he would debate them within their discipline.
That's right.
He would debate social scientists, he would debate historians, you know, psychologists, and the like on group dynamics. And so Malcolm would take their discipline and fight them in their ballpark. So it's one thing to be able to debate on strictly just history. It's another thing to go in someone else's wheelhouse. Now, I remember Dr. Clark once said that Malcolm was getting ready to go into the debate downtown, and they were in a cab together from Harlem, and Dr. Clark was giving him a quick course on Central Africa.
Right.
And Malcolm was able to learn in the 15, 20-minute cab ride from Harlem enough on Central Africa and the Congo to debate these social sciences.
Yeah.
Now, what does that tell you about someone who's self-educated? Now, two of them are both self-educated, as you point out. What does that mean? Well,
it means that they recognize that, you know, these folks who get so hung up in these degrees, PhDs, the BS pile higher and deeper, and that kind of stuff, you know, they're fools. Because when you get your PhD and that's your sole claim to, from white supremacy from these, well, I don't care whether you call it Harvard, Yale, or whatever. You're already brainwashed in so many ways. You've already been trained to operate under white supremacy. And that's why, for example, when the president, I started to say your president, so for a Harvard graduate, well, that means nothing to me. Because he got a better chance of coming out with a white supremacy mind than a kid who's gone to City College.
Yeah, well, when you read Miseducation of the Negro, and he points out that after Harvard, it took him literally 20 to 30 years to get that Harvard stuff out of him. That only shows you how you can be inculcated and indoctrinated with thoughts that would hurt your thinking or hurt your lens when you're looking at other black people. It makes you look at people through a skewed lens, your own people. And somehow you look at white folks with superlatives and you ascribe superhuman qualities to them. But when you look at your own, it's disgust, distrust, mistrust, and you look at them as undeveloped and miscreants and what have you.
They have created a whole cultural mentality for you in the process of, quote, miseducating you.
Well, look, as we get ready to go to the phones, and we want to open up the phones, and you can give us your thoughts on Malcolm and what you feel about, if you want to comment certainly on this last thing that the president said relative to armaments in various cities. But I just want to point out that Eric Josie wrote a brilliant letter on behalf of Carol Horn, and Carol Horn is the black police officer who defended a black man who was already handcuffed and was already arrested and restrained by other Buffalo police officers. And that officer in turn was beating the guy who was already restrained and handcuffed, and she interceded and he began assaulting her. Well, Eric Josie is trying to help get her pension back, and just big ups to you, Carol Horn, for doing something like that. Certainly we need more examples of these profiles of courage that you demonstrated, and certainly Eric Josie, I want to just thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for writing on your behalf. And if we have to go to Buffalo, whatever August body there, whether it's the state assembly or the city council, whoever we have to speak to or go before, then we just count me in on doing it. And because we definitely need all hands on deck to help her get her pension, because she deserves it.
And Slimy Andy can, but I doubt he will. Slimy Andy,
well, certainly the governor. Certainly the governor has a say in it, and certainly the state controller, Napoli, I think his name is Napoli, he has a say in it, and their local city council, they have 3 people that can vote that can get her a pension, because she deserves a pension. Carol Horn, and we should remember that name. This is a beautiful sister. I met her years ago. Beautiful sister who very kind and very concerned about our community, and our community should come to her aid. And certainly Eric Josie, a man who I would get into a foxhole with any day, anytime, anywhere, and fight with against anybody. He is taking up the charge, and he's went to bat for her. So at this time, we could, okay, I see, wow, the board is full already with calls. First caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Mike. How you doing?
Good, brother.
Yes, sir, brother. It was beautiful up there at the brother's grave today, and I just wanted to share with the people that we got to keep on teaching each other and keep teaching our children. Because Malcolm, I believe Malcolm would be doing right now is dealing with using a language that our enemy understands.
Right.
And until we understand that, we start using that language, right, rather than talking, we got to use resolution, and that resolution has to be the language that they understand. So I just want to share that with the people, and hopefully we can come up with the proper solution which can uplift our people. And y'all keep doing a great job, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Salam.
Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Next caller, where you calling from?
Hello?
Yes, where you calling from?
Yeah, Harlem.
Go.
Hey, how you doing, Brother Graves?
Hey, brother.
Listen, little side note to Malcolm Little.
Oh, okay.
Hotep to you.
Hotep.
Side note on Malcolm Little. One of his first, as a matter of fact, his best friend in Harlem when he was here was a very young Red Fox.
Oh, okay.
They used to run around together. They hustled together. They slept on rooftops together. They got high together, and they did everything. And when Malcolm decided to join the Nation of Islam, where Red Fox said, "Listen, brother, I love my pork. I can't hang out with you." But they went on separate paths, and the story is with those two is now history. With Waco, Texas, it was as many as 5 gangs involved, and it started over somebody getting their foot run over. These guys make the Bloods and the Crips look like Catholic schoolboys. And of the 150 people that were arrested, at least one man was of the age of 65. So,
Wow,
these guys are terrorists on wheels. And those cops over there are going to have their hands full with these guys because these guys don't play. Lastly, I want to ask you, I saw something very outrageous over the weekend. Maybe you saw it too. I saw the California Highway Patrol pull over a funeral procession because they were moving too slow. And the deceased family was black. And the daughter of the mother, her mother had passed away. She said nothing was more humiliating than to see her mother's car pulled over there on the side of the road. And as a result, most of the people missed the burial of her mother. And as a matter of fact, they made traffic worse than what it was. I have never heard of a funeral procession being pulled over by any kind of law enforcement in my 57 years of being on this earth. And I think that's just outrageous. And even though some of those California Highway Patrol people were black, we know that we can have racism within our own kind. Last thing I want to say is for these parents out here, please grab your children and let's get a hold of our children, because the two situations I've seen on TV over the weekend with the 2 girls fighting in McDonald's and the one guy getting his pants taken from him on this train, that's absolutely ridiculous. We need to get a hold of our youth, and if we got to knock them upside the head like that woman in Baltimore did, then so be it, because this is totally out of control. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, brother. Your calls are always on the money. And certainly Malcolm went on record saying the funniest man he ever met in his life was Red Fox. So you got that all the way. There's no doubt about it that he spent a lot of time with Red Fox. And he said by far that's the funniest man he ever met. And thanks for the insight about the funeral detail, because I don't think, in retrospect, just going based on what you said, I don't think they was going too slow. I think they was driving while black.
That's probably it. And these days, you're going to hear a lot of stuff that you never thought you'd be hearing before.
Yes,
Pulling
sir.
over a funeral thing.
That's terrible.
I had some problems with that woman in Baltimore, but I won't go into that.
Right. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yeah, hi. My name is Nancy. I'm calling from Brooklyn.
Oh, Brooklyn, good.
Yes. Anyway, I want to thank your program and Father Lucas, for being there for the community once a week. However, that's the topic that you spoke about earlier. How could you send your children to be educated by your enemy? I've always believed in that philosophy, that proverb, And I was thinking along the lines for so long that a lot of these churches that have the gate down on them during after-school hours where someone from the community could be educating them instead of having them, go to a McDonald's and let off their frustration on each other and not looking at or understanding what's going on in their life. So I blame a lot of the pastors out here with the churches in our community that keep the gates down, and perhaps he's off because of his finances working. But there are unemployed people, educated people in our communities that could be educating our children. As I don't want to compare ourselves to the Jews, but that's exactly what they do after school. If their children has to attend a public school, so does the Arabs, the Muslims. I believe there's a school for them over in Sunset Park. I'm not too sure of the area.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
And I don't want to take up your time with this. I just thank you guys for being there.
And thank you for the call, sister.
It's an excellent point. I've been trying to, but it's a waste of time. When you see big church buildings with all kind of room and area closed down, except on Sunday you open it up to make some money.
Well, I think that certainly the caller's point is well taken, that yes, you can keep the chapel secluded or what have you, but there are other parts of the church that can be utilized after school hours that will not, I know the parishioners' concern is making sure they have a nice church, and that's good. But however, there are other parts of the church that can be utilized for other things, and like you said, that's a better alternative than to what happened at McDonald's. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from the Bronx. I want to say thank you very much, gentlemen, for
All right.
keeping information flowing in our community. I wanted to comment on the media and that Texas situation.
Okay.
I noticed that as the media has covered this, they are not portraying these criminals as thugs, as wilding out, as a danger to the whole community. The police and law enforcement in that community knew that those criminals were having a gathering. They allowed them to gather, and the police waited for them outside. When the fight broke out, which they could very well anticipate, given who the police intelligence told them who would be there. Now, if you transpose the situation where 5 gangs are going to meet somewhere that have perhaps some disagreements in and amongst themselves, and the police are known and waiting outside, you'd have had 200 black young men shot down by the armed civil police forces that would have laid a trap. Then now when we look back at this Waco situation, they got 9 guys and pretty much they shot each other. They arrested, 18 other people got shot as part of that group. And they arrested, 150, 175, 200 people?
Now, I want to question you on one thing. Because the facts are that many people have arrested, and you're right relative to the amount of people who were shot. But you made a reference earlier and said they were not referred to as thugs.
Wild or animals or wilding out.
Now, is that a term that's reserved primarily for blacks? When you hear the term thugs, is that for blacks and Latinos?
Well, that's what it appears that it has become with the help of the Donald. And it's a shame that their racist ideology perpetuates classifying blacks as the worst of their country's humanity. And that's how they're trying to portray us consistently.
Okay.
And they do not refer or refer to their own who are much more heinous than we are. much more heinous. You don't hear about black people going out committing serial crimes. There are things that we just don't do.
Yet.
Father Lucas?
It's
Pray
very,
that we do not. I do. I pray to that.
it's very interesting that the police knew that these 5 or 6 gangs were coming. They all knew they were armed. They knew they had a disagreement with them. Could they have been a better reason for stop and frisk?
And confiscation of
Yeah,
weapons.
confiscation of weapons. But of course, stop and frisk is only for black and Latinos.
Interesting.
Unless the police have to acknowledge that they did not have the capacity to stop 400 people at one time.
Oh, well, Waco would have that capacity, and,
Yes.
Waco and neighboring counties
And
would
they
have the
could have called
capacity. But once you have coordination of on-site intelligence and you can get the proper personnel, I think they chose not to because it's just that thing that white supremacy prevents them from thinking the worst of themselves.
And of course, they could have called in the state police, they could have called in the National Guard.
Oh, yeah.
They could have
Yeah.
done all kinds of things, so that's not an excuse.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you, brothers, for all that you do, that you keep issues in front of our community, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. God
Next
bless.
caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Yes.
Hi, is that me? I thought I had 2 calls ahead of me. Hi, Michael. It's Benjamin Stuyvesant checking in.
Go right ahead. She's
Okay.
Catholic. Go ahead.
How'd you
Just
know?
letting Father Lucas know she's Catholic.
How'd
Go
you know?
ahead.
Okay, all right. See? Okay, Michael. Anyway, thanks, Michael, for that call ahead of me. This is what I want to share. I was one of the ones that went to the Rutgers University conference on Saturday,
Yes.
and I was asked to speak on the Freedom Party.
Okay.
And I did. But when I approached the podium, all the persons sitting in front of me, before me, they look like you. So now I'm going to tell these people about Freedom Party and what Freedom Party is about and what we're attempting to do, pulling the leg of forming our own party. And Michael, you know, you ran. And it was hard for me because I did not think that I could stand before these people and explain to them the need for a party for people that looking like those of us that were there speaking before them.
Well, I want to thank you for you and Sister Keisha and others who represented the Freedom Party in New Jersey at Rutgers University. And certainly I would have been there, but me and Minister Abdul Haq Muhammad was at Nicholas Bookstore in Brooklyn. But from what we heard, that it was a strong turnout where you were, and certainly our night was successful downtown Brooklyn. But you know, we all need to be ready and prepared. That's what Malcolm taught, to always be ready and prepared, because at the drop of a hat, you're called in the service and the duty. Father Lucas can get a call 15 minutes from now. He can't tell the people he's not ready to perform. So we all need to be on our A game, and if we're always ready, we don't have to get ready. So thank you for your efforts, Sister Judy, and continue down those lines as you've always done. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hotep Brothers. I'm calling from Harlem.
Oh, good.
All
Go.
right. Just a few quick points. As far as that situation in Waco, Texas, I saw one police officer who said that in his 30 years of law enforcement that he'd never seen anything of that magnitude. And I'm just wondering, given the mayhem, do they refer to that as white-on-white crime? And secondly, as far as Hillary Clinton is concerned, I hope that black people do not get duped into believing that because she's a woman and she's a Democrat, that somehow that's going to work in our favor in America. Bill Clinton just recently came out and made some statements regarding his policies, in terms of the crime bill, and that he realizes that it actually was more harmful. So you mean to tell me now that all these years later, now that he's out of power, he just now realizes that? that he couldn't figure that out while he was the president? There's 3 strikes and you're out.
Well, I'll just say for the record, relative to Hillary Clinton, this is the wife of a former president. That's all. She is the wife of a former president. Yes, she does have a law degree, and she was able to parlay that with just a law degree, being the wife, a dutiful wife of a president, turn into a U.S. senator overnight, recruited and brought here to New York, and pushed by this state's Democratic machine, became a U.S. senator, parlayed that and turned around and became Secretary of State. I mean, how much do you get just by being a president's wife? And there are thousands of people more qualified to her to have been U.S. Senator. Nydia Velázquez could have been the U.S. Senator from New York, and certainly a whole lot of people could have been the Secretary of State as opposed to her. I don't see the talent in her. I don't see anything about her that shows you she's qualified to be president, Secretary of State, or any of these positions she's held other than being a dutiful wife to a former president.
Then the other side of that coin is look at what she's done and said and promoted as senator, as Secretary of State, and as they say, her record is right out front.
Mm-hmm. So, and black people think we're off base. Just remember her reaction to the murder of Gaddafi, okay, a sovereign nation. Mm-hmm. But lastly, the last point I wanted to make is I wanted to get you all's opinion on this because we know that President Obama certainly has the power to do this. He could do this overnight if he wanted to. What do you think is the likelihood that he will give Mumia Abu-Jamal a pardon before he leaves office?
You have to be kidding. You serious? President Obama.
Pardons to people that I didn't even think he would give a
pardon
to.
Well, look, let me just say for the record that President Obama has done everything under the sun to endear himself to white people. Why would he squander all of that after all of these years and pardon Mumia Abu-Jamal? I mean, not even the person who is just in La La Land and just dreams all day would even, it just would never happen. No. I mean, there are 1,000 other people that should be out of jail right here in New York, political prisoners, that he should let out, but to let someone out who was accused of killing a police officer, even though it was almost 35 years ago, no, he's not going to do that. If he dreamed of that, he would wake up and apologize to white people for even dreaming of it.
I don't think he can dream of it. And secondly, I don't even want to use the word pardon, because if he had half a you-know-what, and look over the record of that trial and what went before it, he would have said the man was innocent.
Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
I'm calling from Rockaway.
Go.
Okay, yes, good evening. Good afternoon. I want to say that this year of the anniversary of the Million Man March, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan will be talking about violence on black people, about our enemies, white cops and white vigilantes, and the violence against black on black, which I believe it can be helpful to alleviate the drive-by shooters in our community, because we can be the best one to control this type of madness in our communities against ourselves, and I hope we can help him bring forth the family on this day of the anniversary of the Million Man March to lessen the drive-by killing of us by us, just as well as our open enemy. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Yes, where you calling from?
What's up, brother? I'm from Harlem.
Go.
What's up? Yeah, I was going to get back because that was Brother Terrence that's called up.
Go, brother. Come on, let's go quickly.
Anyway, yeah, with regard to those motorcycle gangs down there in Waco, Texas, if they all found guilty, they're going to put them all to death, give them all the death penalty?
Of course not.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was wondering. Well, they said they charged them all with capital murder.
We'll see, brother. Time will tell.
But you know they ain't going to put 175 people, 200 white people to death. We all know that.
That's correct.
And isn't it ironic when some people, they commit when the cops commit murder, right, and they kill a black person, only one cop most of the time he gets charged, if he gets charged.
Right.
But these other people, they go out and they do it. Everybody get locked the hell up.
Okay, we could pump the brakes for a minute and just see ultimately what's going to happen in this, because I don't think not too much.
Right. Okay, brother.
All right, next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quickly.
Brother Ray Ray?
Go.
Hey, how you doing, Mike? This is Brother Ray Ray. Can I get your opinion on they wanting to put Harriet Tubman's picture on the, $20 bill? And I also want to let the Community Cop family know about May 21st event for Attorney Alton Maddox at the Cotton Club. And do you think we're coming into a race war in America?
Okay, well let's get the Alton Maddox thing is going to be when and where? When and where?
The Alton Maddox thing is going to be the 21st at the Cotton Club. In honor of Alton Maddox, anybody from the Community Cop family.
Okay, that's Thursday. That's this Thursday.
Thursday, yes.
That's this Thursday. And what's the address for the Cotton Club?
And the Cotton Club is on 125th Street and 12th Avenue, right at the end of 125th Street.
At what time?
It's magnificent.
What
7
time?
o'clock it starts.
Okay, and that's black owned and operated, is that right?
Black owned and operated.
What's the person's name?
Beatty is the name. John Beatty is the name that owns the Cotton Club.
One of the only black people that owns something on 125th
And
Street.
you will see a band there that will rock your socks. Not to mention them sweet potatoes that they cook down there. They are smoking.
The food is off the hook, man. There's no doubt about it. And it's black owned and operated, and it's good to spend money with your own. And I don't know who the they is that wants Harriet Tubman, or who do you say, Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill? That's not going to happen. They're not going to remove one of the greatest, in their opinion, one of the greatest presidents of all time, Andrew Jackson, Old Hickory, one of the most brutal white men ever to live. You talking about vicious. Everybody looked like a Sunday school attendant compared to Andrew Jackson. When you compare him to other presidents, nobody was more of a liar and more heavy-handed and a racist than Andrew Jackson. So they're not going to remove him as long as this current construct is in America. One more quick caller. One more caller. That's it. Okay, no more callers. What is your response to that, Father Lucas, real quickly?
To which one now?
To Harriet Tubman or whoever on a $20 bill?
That's a dream.
Yeah.
It's not gonna, what? They're gonna put her there and take that lousy murdering cracker, come on.
Okay, well, no, last thoughts on Malcolm. We almost out of time. Okay, as a matter of fact, we at the final thought time. What's your final take on anything you've heard today?
On Malcolm, fantastic. You know, one of the things that I always want to try to make a chasm between Malcolm and Dr. King. Mm-hmm. And actually, Malcolm was a great admirer of Dr. King. He just didn't believe that you could have a tactic based on the conscience of a people that have no conscience.
Right.
And that was the thing.
Right.
And this nonsense about non-violent, well, if you're outnumbered and don't stand a chance, okay. But my thing is, when they used to ask white folks, are you nonviolent? My question, are you?
Well, yeah, and so in closing, I'll say that certainly we remember Malcolm. We remember his great contribution. Big kudos to Professor Smalls and to Dr. Leonard Jeffries for continuing, and so many others for continuing this remembrance at his gravesite. They've been doing it 50 years now. Yeah. And we want to see them able to do it for another 50 years. Big ups to the UAM family for honoring certainly Alton Maddox. And just remember Sister Betty Dobson on the 31st at Family Center in Queens. To all those, God bless, and certainly we are looking forward to having Julian and Noel back next week. Hotep, peace, reinstate automatics.
By the way, big ups to Veronica. I saw her in an earlier program today, and she was terrific. Our producer, Veronica Kidd.
All right.